another episode of PowerMove Makers. This series was created with a simple goal in mind: to bring to the table high-level execs, successful entrepreneurs, and more important, those people who just plain and simple inspire us with their story. I love to bring these people to the table, not just to speak about their successes, but also the road they traveled to get there. Now, this week's guest, he's a man after my own heart. He's a serial entrepreneur, has created not one, but two multi-million-dollar businesses. And in the process of that, he is now giving back to his community, teaching, educating, motivating through his online platform, the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Please welcome Mr. JayJones.
Shawn, what's happening, brother? How are you?
Jay, how you, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good, man. I'm trying to maintain, brother. You know, it's rough out here right now.
Yeah, these are hard times out here, Jay. They really, really are. Between COVID and all that's going on in the world, you know, with the rioting and the protesting, you know, it's hard times.
Definitely.
Now, yeah. Jay, like I said in the intro, you really are a man after my own heart. You know, we have so much in common being serial entrepreneurs, but at this point in our lives, really trying to give back to our community through education and just helping them to get into the mindset of successful individuals. You do it extremely well on your platform, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, and I try to do the same thing on the PowerMove Maker series. So for anybody who does not know JayJones, give them a brief synopsis of who you are.
All right. You want me to stick to the personal, then we go into the entrepreneur stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. On a personal note, I'm born and raised Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Went to Temple University, graduated with a degree in finance, a minor in marketing. Always been an entrepreneur since I was little, always had side hustles going on. And after I left Temple, I was a stockbroker for Dean Witter and then for Merrill Lynch. And subsequent to that, I went out on my own and I bet on myself.
Love that. Love that. Jay, let's go back for a second.
Okay.
You're in Temple. Yep. You major in finance?
Yes.
Now, when you took that major, was this something you thought you were going to use for the rest of your life to go out there and work for someone? Or did you always know you were going to be an entrepreneur and one day just have to put that finance degree to the side, but use what you learned in the classroom to build a business?
Great question, Shawn. Yeah, I always knew that I was eventually going to go out on my own. Didn't know exactly what it was going to be. So I figured that I'd go out, and at the time, man, Wall Street was hot. You know, the movie Wall Street, I was always in the numbers and finance, and I had some of my mentors that were in that field. And so I figured, let me go ahead and go and move in that direction, always knowing in the back of my mind that I eventually was going to swerve off a little bit and do my own thing, but I didn't know exactly what that was going to be.
So you're working down in Wall Street as a stockbroker at the time.
Yeah, but my office was in Philly.
Your office was in Philly. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Got you. How long did you work at Dean Witter?
18 months. And then I got recruited to move over to Merrill Lynch, because at the time, Merrill Lynch was at the top of the food chain. Mm-hmm. And so I was doing good numbers at Dean Witter, and I got poached. So I went over to Merrill Lynch and did about 3.5 years over there before I finally just moved on to my own thing.
Before we get into that, were you making good money?
Yeah, I was making real good money.
Yeah?
I used to. Yeah, my client base, you know, it's your network. So when you're a young Black guy, you're dealing with money. My whole concept of money changed. So you're coming out of college, you know, I'm a middle class guy, whatever, I guess you would call it that, you know, my parents. And I'm starting to work with these numbers that were at the time astronomical to me. And so I just happen to have a network. Some of my friends played professional sports. My college classmates also had some friends that were in the entertainment industry. And that's kind of what I gravitated towards. So my niche, entertainers, athletes, and entrepreneurs. And when I started talking to the entrepreneurs and bringing them on as clients, that's when it really hit me. I'm like, damn, this is what I want to be doing. I want to be on the golf course making deals versus in here, you know, working 12, 14 hours a day, making good money, but I wasn't fulfilled.
You know, I want to zone in on that because I think that is that's the thing that holds so many people back from jumping out there on their own. Number one is that stability. Number
Right.
two, a lot of times, you know, people are making good money. They know that check is going to be there every other week. They can depend on it and they get comfortable.
Right.
You being a young man at that time, what made you take that leap of faith? Because, you know, granted, you're around people who are making great money and you're investing their money for them. But to jump out there on your own, that's a whole other ball game. You know, so can you give me just the mindset of a person? Because there's somebody who is in this position right now. You know, they're being held back by, it could be fear, it could just be comfortability.
Right.
What would you say to that person who's in that position? They want to transition, but it's something holding them back.
Great question. The mindset that I had was I always knew that I was going to bet on myself. I know that I have this stick-to-itiveness, and when I put my will to things, I'm usually successful. And if I'm not successful at the level that I think I'm going to be, you always learn something in the process. So what I would say to somebody who's trying to transition from employee to entrepreneur is really think about what is your why. So this is the analogy I always use. So as a stockbroker, to be successful in that business, that's a high mountain and a hard mountain to climb, right? So you want to climb the mountain that's going to have the prize on top that you want, right? Why are you going to climb a hard mountain? And when you get to the top, it's not what you want. So if you desire to be an entrepreneur and you're going to already bust your hump with wherever you're working, why not bust your hump for yours? Something that's yours that you can own and it's an asset. So I would say to you, focus on what you want. What does your life look like? What do you want it to look like 5 years, 10 years? And you mentioned something real, Shawn, that's real important. You talk about they got used to this paycheck, right? People get used to paychecks. So I wrote an article and it still gets crazy traction called Pacified by a Paycheck. I wrote it about 4 or 5 years ago on my Black Entrepreneur Blueprint blog. And that's really what happens. You got a pacifier in your mouth because you're getting that paycheck.
Yeah.
When really, this isn't what you want. You want something else, but this is holding you back. And I think a lot of it comes down to self-confidence. It comes down to your support system. And it comes down to the real bottom line is, how bad do you want it? If you don't want it bad enough, guess what? You're not going to get it. But if you truly want it, just like your story, you know, with your internships, you wanted that. So
Correct.
you did everything that you needed to get to that. And I don't think a lot of people are vested enough and really put the effort in to get what they want as an entrepreneur. And I think that's the biggest thing. So bet on yourself, have a plan, and then move toward that plan.
You know, I want to shine a light on something you just said. How bad do you want it? You know, for anybody who finds themselves in this position right now, this second, you have to ask yourself, how bad do I want it? Because anything that's on planet Earth that you really want, anything, no matter how big or how small, right now, if you had a craving for, I don't know, chocolate ice cream, you're going to figure out a way how to go out there and get it. But how bad do you want this change? And that's something that you have to ask yourself. And if the answer is not, I want it bad enough to leave this comfortable existence that I know of today, then you don't want it bad enough. You just don't.
Right. Exactly.
If you're not willing to leave that comfortable existence. Let me ask you, was the concept of entrepreneurship in your family, is this something that you were raised with, or is this just who you are as a person? Is it just part of your DNA, but all of your, maybe your mom, your dad, your uncles, your aunts, they all work full-time jobs?
Great question. My dad was one of the first commercial realtors in the city of Philadelphia, Black commercial realtors. He ended up leaving and started his own residential real estate and life insurance business with my uncle. So when I was little, I used to go to the office with my dad, not quite comprehending what was going on, but I knew that my dad was the boss. You know what I mean? So when he walked in the office, everybody, he and my uncle, they were the two owners. And I don't know subconsciously, because I didn't really have a concept of what was going on, but I didn't know that may have subconsciously affected me, because when I was 7, 8 years old, man, I was the guy out on the street in the summertime. I'm buying a big bag of chips. I'm breaking them down into little chips, making Kool-Aid, and while we running around on the block, I'm making money. Mm-hmm. So I always knew that I needed to be the master of my own destiny. I just wasn't exactly sure how I was going to do that at the time. But my dad was, and matter of fact, my great-grandfather, who I'm named after, was another big entrepreneur in the Portsmouth, Virginia area as an architect, building housing for Black folk, all types of stuff. So I guess it probably is in my DNA, because that's truly who I am.
You know, I asked you this question because, you know, people like myself, right? Mm-hmm. My mom was a hustler. My dad, he owned his own business. He worked for self. I never known him to work for anybody else. So I could turn around and say, you know, it is in my DNA. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have a lot of support,
right?
When I went out there.
Right.
So I don't want people to get it confused. If this bug, if you're being affected by this bug, sometimes you just got to jump. You just got to go out there and just do what you do. And just allowing that to transition. You leave Merrill. What's your first business?
All right, y'all. I started a company, me and one of my best friends from college. It was called Zulu Condoms. The condom design.
Hold on, excuse me?
Yeah. Zulu Condoms, Z-U-L-U. I wish I had one on me, but it was called Zulu Condoms, the condom design with the Black man in mind. And we had Respect and Protect was our moniker. And on the back of the packaging, we had statistical data showing the repercussions of unsafe sex in the Black community. And so my partner and I came up with the idea. He actually came up with the idea, and I was like, man, this isn't going to work. Then a bolt of lightning hit me one night while I'm in the bed. I'm like, yo, Zulu Condoms, the condom design with the Black man in mind. And bam, we started off and running. So just imagine, I was just newly married. My partner had got married a year ago. He was at Merrill Lynch in another branch. And we tell our wives, yo, we quitting. We starting the condom business.
Woo!
So you know.
Yeah, that couldn't have been a great conversation.
But you know what's funny? I told my wife, I said, you knew who I was before you married me. I already told you what I wanted to do. I wanted to have my own business. I didn't know exactly what type at the time. And her background is in education, right? So she's actually a principal at a high school now. But she was a teacher then, and all her parents were both teachers. So, you know, that's a very stable. Yeah, very stable. The only way you're going to lose that type of job is if you molesting kids or something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's crazy. But so it was a different dynamic, man. And it was a tough transition for her to really grasp. But I give her credit. You know, she hung in there with the brother.
Good man. How'd that company do?
Oh, bro, if you go back and check out Vibe magazine, The Source, Essence, we had so many write-ups. This was in the early 90s. TLC used to throw our condoms out at shows. Luke from the 2 Live crew, we used to do promos with him. So we were getting mad traction. But the problem was it was pre-internet days. So if the internet was up back then, man, I'd probably be sitting on a hammock in an island right now. You know what I mean? So we were doing everything via mail, direct mail, and we run like radio advertising. We'd be at all the Black expos at Javits Center all around the country. And we got crazy press because our whole concept was, yeah, it's cool and all of that, but we're trying to, this is when AIDS was really hitting hard, really came out. So we're like, look, if you're going to, be sexually active, protect yourself. That's why it's respect and protect. And so, yeah, that was our first business. We rolled for about 2.5 to 3 years pretty well. But then my first daughter was born. My wife and I, my partner, he had a child. And those margins on condoms, man, you got to sell a whole lot of condoms to make some decent money. So we ended up squashing it. But it's funny, my niece, probably about 10 years ago, she was like, Unc, I want to bring this back. I said, you got my blessing, because I'm too old to be out there hustling like that for condoms anymore. But that was the first business, bro. Yeah. So if you Google it, I've seen a couple articles, but I got stacks of newspaper articles and stuff and interviews, man. It was crazy. So we made some noise. We didn't have the economics to keep up with the actual press that we would get.
Gotcha. So you shut the business down. Do you go back to a full-time job or do you go into another business?
I go back to a full-time job, and I'll tell you why I did that. And I've done that like twice. So I was in, out to recalibrate. So my thing is this: a lot of times I'll take jobs so I can learn things, not for the money. Mm-hmm. So my next venture was, my next thing was I went back into corporate as an advertising executive for Gannett, which used to be the publisher of USA Today and all of that stuff. And so I went back in there because I said, man, I got to learn real marketing, how to advertise, because when I come back out again, I want to have that in my holster. You know what I mean? So I took a job. I did about 14 months at Gannett, and then it was peace. I'm out. But I do that. And like I tell people now, whatever position you're in, if you're trying to transition, leverage all the resources and tools that your employer has. Don't steal them, but leverage them. You know what I mean? Yeah, leverage them so you can add ammunition to your tool belt. So when you do go out, I have this hard skill. I learned how to do that. So that's exactly what I did.
Do you come back out after 14 months into another business?
Yeah, baby. I can't quit, man. It's in me, Shawn.
Okay. So I want you, because this is a point I want to highlight here. Mm-hmm. People think that this is going to be easy. People don't understand that when you're an entrepreneur, the odds of you hitting it out the park the first go round are slim to none. Exactly. So I want to take a second and zone in on this, because you had your condom business for what, 2-3 years?
About 3 years, yeah.
About 3 years. You had to put it to rest for whatever the reasons you go back into the workforce.
Right.
Did you understand at that point failure was part of the process?
Most definitely. And that's key, because people that aren't entrepreneurs don't understand that. So it's almost like it's a stepping stone. You graduated. You just got out of first grade. Now, I always told my wife, I said, if major million and billion dollar companies can go out of business, why can't JayJones?
There you go.
So my whole philosophy is, and this is what she had to understand over a period of time, this is part of the process. So as long as I'm not making those same mistakes that I made the first time, then that means I've leveled up to the next grade. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
That's so true, because people think because they have failed, because they put all of this work into their business, and for whatever reason it didn't take off, that wasn't supposed to be what it is.
Right.
In this thing called entrepreneurship, it is almost 100% certain that you are not going to start a business first go round, and that business is going to carry you for 20, 30 years, and you are going to live on some island somewhere and be wealthy. It just doesn't work like that. So please understand, failure is part of this process. You just have to learn from it and get back on the horse. Uh-huh. You go, and speaking of getting back on the horse, you get back into entrepreneurship. You leave Gannett.
Right.
What's your next business?
My next business at the time was actually a marketing company where I actually produced trade shows and expos. So I was doing baby shows, baby expos, career fairs, trade shows. And when I came out, that was another reason I went in to Gannett, because I could learn and really see hands-on how people are marketing their businesses. And so that was very helpful. So when I came back out, by this time, my oldest daughter was 5. My youngest daughter was 3, and I just had my son. So I'm coming right back out. My wife was like, "Yo, bro, good?" I'm like, "Yeah, babe, we good." So I came back out and I was rolling, man. And I had spoken to you off the air, man. I almost lost it all twice. And this time I was very successful, doing all types of shows and expos, man, making crazy money. And my wife called me one day in the summertime, and I'll condense the story. She was at Long Island. My wife is from Long Island, and my son was 6 months old, and the soft spot in my son's head started to swell.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife is like, yo, I'm gonna take him to the doctor. And I'm over there working on a show. I'm right in the middle of my biggest show at the time. And took him to the doctor. They did a scan. They found that it was a tumor. First, they didn't think it was cancerous. And then once we brought him back to Philly at Children's Hospital in Philly, they did a biopsy. He had what was called a rhabdoid tumor, which was a cancerous brain tumor that is very aggressive. So only like 1 in a million kids would get it. And so my son had it. So now you're looking at the Jones family. My wife has to stay home because she has to take care of my son. She had all the benefits, you know, and life, health insurance and all that. And so now I'm right in the middle of my biggest show. I'm distraught, but I know the show must go on because I got these people money. I gotta push through that show, Shawn. And I didn't even give myself time to really think. And right after that show, bruh, everything just kind of crashed down on. That show was keeping my focus off of the sorrow and the angst that we were going through. And subsequent to that show, man, some of my other shows didn't kick off that well. We're fighting for my son's life. He battled 11 months, and at 17 months, we lost him. And so when you're talking about entrepreneurship, I'm not just dealing with, ups and downs of entrepreneurship. I'm dealing with the emotional stress, the financial stress now, because after that last show, man, everything kind of just went to the, went down. I'll put it like this. It's a PG show. So went down. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, what am I going to do now? And we just lost our son. My wife is back to work, but it's crazy in our household, man. So, but I get back on the horse and make my first comeback. So it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Now you want to hear about that?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nah, well, did you want some questions? Because I can tell you what my first comeback was, or did you want to address what I was just saying?
No, I was just going to say, that is one club that no parent wants to belong to.
Exactly.
So I could only imagine what you were going through at the time.
It's crazy, bro.
So obviously, my condolences
to
you and your wife. That's very, very difficult to bounce back from. And speaking of that, how did you bounce back?
My faith, man. My faith, brother. So, I know there's people that probably, you got atheists, you got agnostics, probably you got people that are into whatever different religion or whatever. But for me, I'm a Christian. And so my faith, and I believe that I know that I'll see my son again. So while I'm here for this short time, on this earth, in this form, I'm going to do what I need to do. And when it's my time to transition, I know he'll be there waiting for me. So that's how we got through it. And I do want to say this to anybody. I don't care if you're an entrepreneur, you work in corporate. A lot of times the death of a child can really affect marriages. And so I'm blessed to have a queen by my side that we stuck together. We had tough times, obviously, but we stuck together and we held our family because we had my daughters were still there. So we had to make sure that our home was a happy home for my daughters as they continue to grow. And I couldn't have done that without my wife. So I got to definitely shout her out because it takes two. It's a unit. And if my wife, my immediate family, friends, and that's how we got through it. And obviously our faith, man, that's how we press forward.
I want to dig a little deeper into that.
Yeah,
because
no problem.
As an entrepreneur, having that support system is key.
Big time.
Your wife stood by your side while you out there, you're gambling the family finances.
Yeah.
You
must have been in the room listening.
Yeah, man, it sounds good to be like, I'm betting on myself, but she's the one out there going and getting that, check that she knows is going to be in the bank account every other week. Yep. Now y'all go and you lose your son. like you said, you almost lost it all.
Oh,
How
yeah.
how close were you, number one, to being in financial ruins, but number two, losing your family?
Oh, I never, I'll say this about my wife. She was never an entrepreneur, and she's grown to, understand what being the spouse of an entrepreneur is. We had something, man, that I'm blessed with, because we could argue whatever, but she's my best friend. We're each other's best friend. And I know when the chips are down, she may yak, tell me what she feels. I respect that. But I know that she's got my back. So I was never worried about that. In terms of losing it all, now, if I told you the stress level in the Jones family wasn't off the charts, I'd be lying to your family, and I'm not going to do that. So I'll give you a real life example. So if everybody looked at us from the outside, they think, oh, they doing well, 2 nice cars in the driveway, house, built a new house, I think about 3 years, he's only 3 years old, kids look good and all that stuff, family looks healthy, not knowing what we had been dealing with. And so when you talk about a low point, man, one night, this is about a month before my son passed, my oldest daughter's room was in the front of the house. And we had a van at the time, we got 3 kids. And my oldest daughter woke me up. She said, Daddy, there's somebody out front. It's about 3 a.m. I'm like, what? So I look out the window. I see a repo man, right? So I'm transparent on my podcast too. I see the repo man. This truck now, or this van, was the van my wife used to take my son to the hospital, every couple of days. So, my son actually had to have a feeding tube, and he had all types of stuff because of the chemo he didn't want to eat. And so they had to, we had to feed him through a tube. And so I run outside in my socks, man. It's probably about May. And I said, bro. And I said, man, look, I said, I literally just made a payment for the car probably about 3 days ago. And then he was like, well, yeah, but it wasn't enough. And I said, well, they didn't tell me that. They said, I could make a partial payment, then make another. He said, man, I'm going to have to take this car, and I'm going to keep this PG. I said, brother, I know you have nothing to do with this. I said, but my son is in chemo. He has brain cancer. I said, you can come on in. I'll show you all the stuff. He said, man, I can't do that. I said, well, you're going to have to have 2 choices, bro. Either you're going to put that car down, or you're going to need to call the police. What you going to do? I said, because I'm going to give it to you the PG way. You about to get it. you about to get this Philly combo on you, right? And so, and the brother looked at me. He's actually a white guy. He looked at me. He said, man, you know what? I'm gonna put the truck down for you, the car down. And he rolled out. But then my wife seeing that, we going through all this financial distress. And like I said, bro, I can laugh at it now, but back then that was just fuel to the fire, man. And it was crazy, man. So that's how close I was. Cars, the mortgage was behind. And then once again, though, you got to rise from the ashes, man, like the Phoenix. And that was my next move.
and before we go into your next move, I want to just zone in for 1 second, because what you're saying, I love, number one, your honesty and your transparency and your willingness to put it all out there, because people, you understand this road of entrepreneurship, this ain't easy. Mm-hmm. This, no matter how much you betting on yourself, no matter how big your idea is, usually before you hit it out the park, you're going to be having this type of story. There's not an entrepreneur I know who can't say they almost lost it all at least once. And that's at least. Most times they've lost it at least 2 or 3 times before they, are now sitting at the top of the hill and everybody's looking at them as the shining example. So if you're going through it, I cannot say this enough. It is part of the process, but you have to get back on that horse. You have to stick with it.
Exactly. So that was a tough transition, man. Then after I lost my son, one of my best friends, he was in the mortgage business. And when I was at Merrill Lynch and Dean Witter, we actually sold mortgages too. Not as in-depth as having your own business, but he was like, yeah, look, man, because he knew I was the idea guy and I was like operations. I can put things together. He knew the business and he wanted me to put things together to get our own mortgage brokerage licensing. So he was like, man, let's roll, man. There's too much money out here to be made. And I'm tired of, working my butt off and the owner of the company work for making all the money. So I'm like, all right, that's what's up. So once again, I said, all right, I'm back at it, babe. This is me. I got to do it. And so my wife was like, do what you got to do. She said, but I need the bills paid. You know what I mean? She said, I can't go through this no more. All right. So I'm over here praying. I'm like, Lord, please let this one jump off, right? So we started this company. My partner and I, we were, it was two of us. It goes back to thermal fax machines. You remember the fax machines with the rolled up thermal paper?
Yes, I do. Yep.
So we had two telephones and a thermal fax machine. Our office was on top of an Indian meat store. So they was bringing in dead goats. So the whole office smelled like crazy. So we're in there and we grew that business from two men with a thermal fax machine to over 50 employees, couple $100 million a year in revenue, not sales, revenues. That's money's coming into your bank account. So all you entrepreneurs and prospective entrepreneurs, I don't care what your sales numbers look like. It's about the revenues, what's coming in the hip pocket national. So we were rolling 6-7 years, crash comes, 2007.
Stop there.
Yep.
How long did it take for you to get that company rolling?
Oh, bro. We were in that little office for a year. We moved over, we moved over to Jersey, right over the bridge in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. We were there for a year there and we got our first couple of employees. Then we moved back over the bridge to Philly and that's where we were banging out. So really to get it really rolling, to be honest, man, about 18 months. So we had our overhead was low. Our rent was $1,000 a month. And it was just me and my partner. We were doing the processing, the selling, everything. And so at that time, if you're making 3 to 4 points on a mortgage and you do a $300,000 mortgage at just say even 3 points, that's 9 stacks. That's $9,000. And you got low overhead, and that's how we built it. Yeah. So we started getting it and using our networks and our contacts. And, from the Merrill Lynch and Dean Witter days. So I used to do a lot of, big, crazy houses for, my boys that were in entertainment or athletes. And so that kind of really propelled us to the next level. Now they're telling their friends and coworkers, and it just, it was crazy, man. I never sold drugs in my life, but that to me felt like some drug money, man.
Yeah, you got hundreds of millions of dollars coming through the door. Like that's a lot of money.
Crazy,
now,
man.
Talk to me about the transition because now you all the way in it. It's one thing to be an entrepreneur who is self-employed, but you're a boss now. You're talking about we have 50 employees. So I want to tap into a couple of things. Yeah. I love what you said about starting very lean. You didn't have an ego about it because I see so many entrepreneurs. They want to come out the box and they want to put on a show. Ain't making no money, but they got to have the fancy office. Everything has to look and resemble like they're making money. Right. That's the wrong way to do it. Exactly. I don't care where your office is. Your office can be in somebody's basement somewhere. Keep your overhead low. It's about low overhead, high profit, and making sure that your margins are good. Yeah. But for you, was there a transition in terms of now I'm not self-employed, I'm now a people manager. I have to actually, because people are dependent on you. They're paying their bills with a check that you're writing. And a lot of bosses are not great bosses. So I don't know if you were a people manager in your past life or if this is a new skill set. But I know for many entrepreneurs, as they grow, the hiring process, retention, making sure that people are coming to work and they're doing the best job to help grow the company and they feel inclusive of these are all things that entrepreneurs learn as they go along. So talk to me about that process.
Well, one of the things is my partner, very good people person. And so I'm a people person too, but my other skill, probably one of my best skills, is operations. And I truly enjoy, I like being in the background. I want to be, so this podcast thing is a little different for me because I'm used to being in the background and I'm orchestrating stuff. I don't need to be out on, out front. But my business partner at the time, that's what he was great at. He was great with the salespeople. He handled the sales staff. I handled the admin staff. Okay. And so, it's a difference because you hit it right on the head, man. I used to tell my wife, I'm like, man, I got two families. I got my real family at home, but I got a family at the office, and those dynamics, man, they can kill you, because you have, this person doesn't like that person, and it's like, look, guys, I got kids at home. All right. Can we just get down to what we do and start making paper? Everybody's eating, right? Everybody's eating. I mean, my processors were getting crazy bonuses. So I'm like, let's focus on the job at hand. But yeah, if you're not a people person and you don't understand the dynamics, it's almost like being a coach, man. So that you may not necessarily have, if you're a basketball coach, the best 5 players starting for you because you might need somebody coming off the bench that's going to bolster your second team. And that player has to be amenable to being, look, I know I'm one of the top 5, but this is how I need to use you. And so if you can build a team and everybody understands what their position is, and not just what their position is, but how does that affect the group and the team as a whole? This is why you're important, Shawn. We need you to do this. Jay, this is why you're important, because we need you to do this so we can all do this. And I think once I started breaking it down to them like that, I don't care if you were a telemarketer, you were important. You know what I mean? You were important to the whole unit. That's how we move, man. So if you don't have people skills, find somebody that does, because that goes a long way in the actual, benefit of your organization and the success of your organization. So that's how I really dealt with it.
Yeah, I mean, before we move on, I think that's, one of the reasons so many businesses fail is because, your business is only as good as, number one, your product, number two, the people who are the machine behind that engine, right? And if they do not feel valued, if they do not feel as though they are benefiting, not necessarily only from the profits, but from the growth of the business and that brand, they are not out there living it, you can't grow your business. So you have to really, number one, hire great people, but you have to nurture them and make them feel part of the growth of your business in all areas of it.
Exactly. Well, can I just add to that real quick,
Please.
One of the things that, and we talked off the air before, one of the things is that there were about 4 of my loan officers that were well paid that wanted to go out on their own. And so they were comfortable enough with me to come to me, say, look, man, this is what I eventually want to do. All right, cool. While you're here, do what you need to do. Don't be stealing none of my clients and none of that. But I'm going to help you. We'll help you get set up on your own, and we don't want nothing for it. You see what I mean? So my thing is, I always said, my philosophy was, if there is a man or a woman that feels they can take care of their family a better way, then I'm never going to hold them back, because that's how I would want somebody to treat me. So instead of firing them and stuff like that, we actually had a plan that, hey, are you interested in starting your own thing eventually? And we had some people that were like, nah, I'm good. I don't have any of the headache, and I'm making 20, 30 grand a month. Mm-hmm. Don't bother me. But then you had other people, once they understood that it was more than just making money as a boss, bro, you got payroll, you got taxes, you got it's a totally different ball game. But the people who wanted to do that, we helped, at least it was 4 of them that were actually pretty successful. We helped them transition. And when we interviewed people, what is your why? What is your long-term goal? Because I would rather help somebody get on their long-term goal. Hey, man, I know I probably shouldn't say this, but I want to eventually own my own business. That's cool. Learn what you can here. Long as you're doing what you're doing, we're going to help you. And so that's how we kind of developed the goodwill, even when things went bad. And I'm sure we'll talk about with the crash, we had goodwill with our employees because they knew it wasn't just about money. We were there to, we cared about each other, and so it was crazy, man. But you got to have that. So people are only going to be at your business for a season, and recognize and understand that. And you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it was crazy, man.
Great gems right there. Great gems. What year did you start this mortgage business?
2000 and the end of 2000, like November of 2000. So really in 2001. Yeah. So
how long did you have it?
Until 2008.
Okay.
That crash.
So, the entire mortgage industry fell apart in 2008.
And once again, guess who was in the middle of it? So that's when I almost lost it all the second time, man. But the stakes are even higher now. So now I done leveled up the crib now, right? I'm never a big car person because we drive our cars till the wheels fall off. So, but we leveled up, the kids were getting older, and the neighborhood we lived in at the time was getting a little crazy. So we stepped that up. And you thinking, all right, I got this money, and money's rolling in. And it's something, man, we had talked about. I was flipping a couple properties on the side and stuff like that. But I talked about diversifying, but I was so entrenched that I ain't see the shots coming. They were coming, you know what I mean? But I'm so entrenched, man. They said you get knocked out by the shot that you don't see when you boxing. Yeah, so I didn't put my guard up. First 2 rules, man, chin down, hands up. I was like this. You know what I'm saying? So when that happened, man, my partner and I we actually brought in a third partner, another good friend. Matter of fact, my partner from the condom business actually came into the mortgage business with us. It was 3 of us. And so we each put in a couple $100,000 trying to keep this thing afloat, personal monies. And we're thinking, okay, it's going to level out. All right, we're going through a bad patch, but we couldn't get anything closed because all the, requirements now to have a mortgage, 750 FICO. I mean, just crazy assets out the yin yang. Everything got shut down. Yep. And so I'm bleeding out all my personal assets trying to keep this boat afloat. And you said something, man. You have people that depend on you. And so I got all these employees that are my other family, and we're like, yo, man, we can ride this out. Let's stick it in. Came home one day, man. My queen, my beautiful wife, she said, man, we got to talk. I said, oh, boy, anytime you hear that, we got to talk, it's a problem. And she was like, I know what you're trying to do. She said, you're trying to save the company. I said, but she said, you got to save us. We losing everything. You know what I mean? I'm pumping all this money in trying to keep that afloat. And I called my partners and I was like, yo, and their wives had been saying the same thing to them. So we were like, you know what? This is what we're going to do. We're not just going to shut it down. We're going to give people 8 weeks of pay, 2 months of pay. You don't even have to come in the office. So this will give you a chance to transition. If you want to come in and help us out, whatever, close this thing out, close whatever loans we got out, we'd appreciate it. And almost to a man, everybody of those employees came back because they knew the only reason we were shutting down is because we had to, And so they appreciated and respected the fact that we didn't just close the doors like a lot of other companies. They was like, yo, you come to work, sign on the door. We didn't do that. You know what I mean? Real, yeah. Go home. Nobody's home. So we were like, yo, this is what it is. We had a big meeting. 8 weeks, we shutting it down. We're going to pay you for those 8 weeks. If you come in, we'd appreciate it. If you don't, if you want to go out and look for another job, we understand. And that's how we transitioned. And to me, laying on the couch, looking at the ceiling, wondering what I was going to do next.
Can we talk about this for 1 second?
Yeah, bro.
I think entrepreneurs, they hold on too long.
Yeah.
When do you know it's time to walk away? Because, you know, common knowledge, we've all heard, you know, persistence, stick it out. It's like, but sometimes you're holding on to something that's dead and gone already. You looking back, if you had to give any advice to anybody watching this that is holding on just for the sake of holding on, there's nothing there no more.
Right.
When do you know to walk away?
That's a great question, man. With my personality type, man, I'm the type of dude that I think that if I dig in hard enough, I'm gonna be able to turn it around. In retrospect, I should have, my partners and I, we've talked about this on numerous occasions. We should have shut that thing down probably about 6 months earlier, kept all our cash as opposed to trying to throw our personal cash in to keep that thing afloat and then transition into something else. But I think once the diminishing returns are consistent, if there's any industry influx, if you're seeing that there's no light at the end of the tunnel, don't be scared or don't be like, man, I failed. That's part of your process. It's part of your process. So what I learned from that whole process is, number one, that it doesn't matter what it looks like today, be it good or bad, that can change instantaneously. And we've seen that in today's environment with coronavirus. So you just have to be aware. You got to think ahead. So it's just like I tell people, like playing pool, right? When you're taking the shot, you're not thinking about just this shot. You're thinking about setting up the next shot and the next. So that's the mindset that you have to have. But if something is draining you financially, mentally, and you don't see any light at the end of the tunnel, cut it loose, because that may be God trying to tell you, yo, this isn't your season for this. I got something better for you. You know what I mean? But I need you to listen. But I think also, Shawn, and you can attest to this, when you create something, it's like your baby.
It's your baby.
Like, yeah, it's like, damn, I created this, man. I just can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But sometimes you got to, man. And I learned that the hard way. But that's a lesson I will never, mistake I'll never make again, though. Trust me.
You know, there's a great point you bring up, because we're going through very difficult times right now with COVID. Businesses across this country, across the world, have been closed down now for going on 3 months. People, entrepreneurs, especially if they built these businesses from the ground up, they don't want to just let them go. It's so hard to look in, yourself in the mirror and say, I'm about to shut down something that I grew from inception.
Right.
But as hard as that decision is to make, like you said, sometimes it's God telling you, the season for this, it's over.
It's over.
Everything, seasons change.
Yeah.
I have something better for you waiting, but you have to be willing to trust the process. Trust God. Trust whoever you pray to, that if you did it once, you can do it again.
Definitely. And hopefully you'll do it better the next time.
You're coming into it with a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
So, this is something that I think so many people they're going to be facing in the next few months. What do I do? Exactly. And it's going to be a hard decision, but you'll know in your heart when it's time to walk away. Just listen to that inner voice. Pay attention to what does my revenue look like? Can I rebuild this? Because it's going to take a lot to get these businesses back up and moving the way that they were before the world shut down.
Exactly.
Talk to me about Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Why'd you create it?
All right. Well, I'll tie that in with my last comeback, which was my last one, because this ties right into Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Mm-hmm. So after the mortgage business collapsed, and now the stakes are higher, bigger house, bigger mortgage, kids going to be going to college in several years. So all of that. I was laying on the couch, bro, and I'm looking at the ceiling. This was late at night. My wife and my daughters are sleeping like babies, and I'm figuring out, man, how am I going to keep these lights on? How am I going to pay this mortgage? I'm behind on everything. So I made a vow to myself. I said, when I come back this time, I said, I'm going to do something that I truly love and something that I'm passionate about. Because as a serial entrepreneur, for me, my joy comes from building businesses. So it really didn't matter to me if it was a mortgage company, a marketing firm. I owned an ADT alarm dealership. I'm like I said, I've owned tons of different businesses. But this time I said, I need to align my inner, what I believe in and what I'm good at, what I like to do. I need to align that with a business. So I started Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, the podcast, more for cathartic reasons, because I've always had people coming over, yo, Jay, man, how do I start this business? How do I do that? Okay. So now I start a radio show in Philly. It's a terrestrial show, and it was actually called The Entrepreneur Advantage. But then I said, you know what? I'm going to pull it off, and I'm going to niche it down to certain things that I love. So I thought about what I like to do. What am I good at? What's somebody going to pay me for? All right. And so I love entrepreneurship. I'm passionate about it. I study it. I breathe it. Marketing, entrepreneurship. I love my people, and being a Black entrepreneur, there's certain things that are intrinsic for us, our experiences, that other ethnicities may not have. Okay. And so I said, well, let me niche this down and start talking about it. And I said, you know what? The guy at the radio station was like, man, nobody listens to this. This was 2014 now. Nobody listens to internet, radio, podcast. All right, bro, whatever. So I just started doing it. My first episode, the first month I had 170 downloads, and they were probably all family and friends. But over the 5+ years, it's been rolling. But what I started doing, Shawn, was I just started talking about my experiences, and I'm very transparent, just like on this interview. The good stuff that I've done and the bad stuff that's happened, my wins, my losses. And then I bring other entrepreneurs on, such as yourself, to share their stories. And it just I'm a grassroots type guy because I'm not real crazy big on social media, just kind of picked up steam. And I was able to create an ecosystem around the actual podcast. And one of the things that really kicked it off, Shawn, was I started telling people about e-commerce, because I hit real big in e-commerce, and that's how my e-commerce portfolio is my second multi-million-dollar business. So I own several product brands, digital. I do digital courses, online stuff. So that's how I built my second business after my second comeback. I built it around what's truly in me, because if you align that, you'll never work a day in your life. And you and I talked about that. If you're doing what God designed you to do, you can't even, I tell people, once you're in that sweet spot, I can't even explain it to you, bro. I don't have to explain it to you because you're there. But I tell people, you over there going to a job that you can't stand, working with people you don't like for money that isn't long enough, versus trying to get to that sweet spot. I'm like, I can't do it. So, but that's how BEB, the podcast started, man.
As you tell me that story, I remember a good friend of mine, a dear friend of mine who's no longer with us, Mr. Reggie Osei. And this was a guy who was an entertainment lawyer for many years. He represented so many of the greats, from Jay-Z to Mary J. Blige, so forth and so on. He built this amazing company, and he walked away from it. He's this entertainment lawyer. He had a huge office, a lot of employees. He's doing contracts for all of the major stars in entertainment. And one day he walked away from it.
Really?
More. And I remember him telling me, Shawn, he started writing. As he walked away and he's trying to figure out what is next, what does he want to do with his life, all he knew was, I didn't love doing law anymore. He knew that part. And he just needed to take it back. And he told me he started out with just writing. And then through the writing, he found this new emerging platform called podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
he reinvents himself because everybody knew him as a corporate lawyer.
Right.
So he changes his name, goes under the name Combat Jack. And,
Oh, wow.
yeah, you know, he goes from lawyer to now he's hosting a podcast talking about, you know, hip hop and really the whole R&B thing, the music industry. In that podcast, he told, and I'll never forget this because I met him and we sat down and he was telling me, you know, Shawn, this podcast thing is going to take over. And I wish I had listened to him back then. Because he started his podcast probably the same time you started yours, maybe 2 years earlier. And he said this podcast thing is going to take over the world. And I'll never forget, he started with, just like you know, maybe 100 downloads, everybody he knows. And one day he called me. He was like, Shawn, I just did over 1 million downloads. You know, I'm killing it. And the point was, he left something that he knew. And I guess at one point it served him. He made a lot of money. He made his name in the music industry as this attorney. But it goes back to our earlier point. It was only for a season. That was it. It was only for a season. And when he decided to transition, to walk away, he trusted God and he understood there was something better for him waiting. Something that spoke to his spirit, something that he would just enjoy doing. It was no longer work. And when he got into that side of his life, that part of the business really blew up for him. And unfortunately, we lost him a couple of years ago. But I love your story because that is the way I try to live my life. And I think all entrepreneurs, you will find success in the thing that you are most passionate about, the thing where your gifts lie. That is where you will find the most success. So search it, seek it, and don't stop until you figure out what is my purpose. And you go out, don't chase the money, but you go after your purpose full force. That money will follow, I guarantee.
Man.
I want to talk to you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to interject real quick. So while I was sitting on that couch looking at the ceiling, and I'm trying to recalibrate, and I talked about doing, you know, things that I like to do and things that I was good at. I have a new book. It's not out yet. It's going to be out in a couple of weeks. It's called Pinpoint and Monetize Your Genius. And that, I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I was actually formulating that book. And your genius is the intersection between your passion and your talent. Okay. So
stay there. Say that again, because that is such a poignant gem that you just dropped. Please say, where does your genius lie?
It's the intersection of your passion and your talent. That's your genius. Okay. And so when I came back, I had to have my genius in full effect. That's the only way I knew to come back, because that's my truism. And so Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, the ecosystem around it, it was my passion and my talents that I put together to create that, what I call genius space. And that's where I'm living in right now. And that's what I was saying. So for me to even think about working for somebody at this point, you know, now I've gone through a lot to get to this point, but hopefully when the book comes out, I'll be able to share some things as how, you know, others can get to their genius spot. So that's my second book, but that's coming out. But yeah, man, that's where I think everybody should be, and everybody probably wants to be there. They just don't know how to get to that place. So, yeah.
You know, I love that. I love that. And we will be creating a segment out of that.
Thank you.
You know, I love that genius place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to point this out to any entrepreneurs listening before I move on to my next point. Mm-hmm. Fear, we all have it. Mm-hmm. There is, trust me when I tell you, I do not care what you can go talk to Mark Zuckerberg right now. Jeff Bezos. There are very few entrepreneurs who, no matter what level they're at, they will not tell you they are not still living in fear. So if you are right now fearful, no matter what level you are in your journey, it is natural. The goal is to keep moving forward. Yep. But just listening to Jay's story, I want to bring something out. Most of us, right? When you're working for the man, when you're doing your 8 hours and you have that stability and you have that paycheck coming in, week over week, and you're happy and you're comfortable, but you know you want to set out there and you're fearful.
Right.
Finally, when you do it, there's this interesting arc that happens, right?
Exactly.
Whereas once upon a time, you leaned on that paycheck. You leaned on the stability. You leaned on the comfortability.
Right.
You then cross over to where you are comfortable being uncomfortable. You don't know what it is anymore to live in a place of, I'm not fearful of going out there and making this next check happen for myself. It's the strangest thing that happens to entrepreneurs, and the reason why, people like yourself, ups, downs, businesses that win, businesses that lose. But after a while, you don't even think about going back into the workforce because you don't know that is so unfamiliar to you.
Right.
You come to a point of this is just what it is. I'm used to living in this space of being uncomfortable. I'm used to living in this space of I eat what I kill. The thought of going back is such an unusual thought for most entrepreneurs who have been doing this for some time. So if you are fearful, understand, number one, that's so normal, because even successful entrepreneurs, they're just fearful of losing what they have amassed.
Exactly.
But you do get over the hump. You do, it is that arc that where I was fearful to leave that check, now becomes, I'm fearful of even having a regular day job. I don't want that anymore. I don't know that life.
That's right.
It's just real interesting.
Brother, real quick, man. I tell my wife and we went out hiking on Saturday, and we were just talking about like when we first got married and stuff. So, and I always tell people, I say, you can get accustomed to good things and you can get accustomed to bad things. And that's really what you get accustomed to, a paycheck, but you can also get accustomed to being an entrepreneur. So we were joking. And I was like, yeah, remember we used to travel, babe, and the only place we stayed was a Red Roof Inn? And she was like, yeah, I remember that. You won't catch me. Not there's anything wrong with it, but I had to step my game up. So I'm not accustomed to staying in the Red Roof now because of the growth of the business and just, where we're trying to go, man. So I'm going to let you go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll interject this later.
I want to focus because your platform is called Black Entrepreneur Blueprint.
Blueprint, yeah.
But there's so many things that plague our community that don't plague other communities.
Mm-hmm.
High incarceration rates, terrible school system, especially public school system within the Black communities.
Yep.
Lack of funding, lack of credit. Within your platforms, do you address all of these issues and how our people can overcome these and still be successful entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so with my ecosystem, I try to address as many as possible, but I don't have the shirt on today, but I have a shirt that says there's no revolution without economics, right? Mm-hmm. And so what people need to understand is economics is the driver behind everything. Economics drives politics, which obviously control or create policies. Economics drives the media, which creates the narratives that we're looking at today, and especially during this COVID thing. Economics drives education. So if you're in a low-income neighborhood, your school may not have enough books. My wife is in the public school system, and the high school she's at it's not low income, but it's not on the upper end, right? And so economics is the driver for everything. So my focus on Black Entrepreneur Blueprint and all of the ecosystems and platforms I've created around it is to build an economic power base in the Black community. And that economic power base can be used to improve those same things I talk about: education, media, how we're perceived, also in politics, because politics is a pay-to-play game. Always has been, always will. You create political action committees, you grease the palms, and when your person gets in, remember what I gave you, I need you to take care of that. And so I just want to say this real quick with the election coming up. I've heard so many people and some prominent Black folk talking about it's no need to vote. And I'm going to be straight up with you. If you don't vote, then I don't want to hear you open your mouth, because I understand how you could say, oh, the national election. But if you don't vote for your local politicians, your school board, and the things that are happening around you, that's how grandmom, who lived in North Philly for 40 years in the same row house, now is getting kicked out because the developers are greasing the politicians' hands. Now they're getting this zone over here where they're starting to rebuild and gentrify, and now grandmom's taxes go up from $2,000 a year up to $20,000 a year, and grandmom can't pay for it. Now grandmom's out in the street because you decided that voting didn't make a difference. It's the dumbest. I'm straight up, y'all. It's the dumbest thing I ever heard. So, economic power base in the Black community. Once you get the economics, there's no revolution without economics. You get that. And the best way to get that is to start, build, and support Black-owned businesses. Shawn, you know, less than 2 cents, and it's in my book, A New Black Wall Street, less than 2 cents of every dollar that a Black person has in their pocket is spent on a Black-owned business. Less than 2 cents. So wow. We have the ability to effect change today. The problem is consciously, we're unconsciously, you know, going about life, right? And I'm going on a tangent, but I just got to tell you this one thing. I
love this space you're in. Take your time.
Okay. I tell people when I do my talks, my book talks and my speeches and stuff like that, I tell, and it's always the Black folks. So I'm unapologetically Black. I love everybody, but I love you even more, right? So, so my thing is, I said, think about if you work in corporate America and you get paid Thursday night with direct deposit. So when you wake up Friday, your paycheck is in there. So you're on your way to work. You stop at a Dunkin' Donuts, get some coffee and donuts or whatever. You spend and some gas. Maybe you spend, just say $25 there. Now you're at work during the day. You spend at lunch. Oh, you're going to go out and grab some lunch. You spend another $20, $25 at lunch. Oh, after work, it's Friday, man. Yo, let's go hang out, grab some drinks, you know, go to the club or the bar, whatever. You spend another $150 there, right? So you spent $200 today. Now, just imagine if your net check was $1,000 that Friday. Before you even take your Black behind home, you spent 20% of your check, and I guarantee you every place you went was not a Black-owned business. And you do that, and we do that unconsciously. So that Dunkin' Donuts probably wasn't owned by a Black person. When you went out to Fridays for lunch, that probably wasn't a Black franchise. Then when you went out to the club or whatever and had dinner, that probably wasn't a Black-owned business. And so unconsciously, Shawn, we start spending all our money, and before you know it, you spent 20% of your income that day before you even went home to lay down. That's one of the biggest problems.
Powerful stuff,
man. Yeah.
You know, Jay, you're speaking my language right now.
That's what's up.
Because, you know, even going back to voting, and I won't stay too long on this point, but please stop thinking your vote don't count.
Exactly.
Stop listening to anybody who is encouraging you not to vote. Your vote makes a difference, and it makes a difference in every area of your life. So stop saying my vote doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Mm-hmm. Jay.
Yes, sir.
Again, very powerful stuff here.
Thank you, brother.
For anybody who is looking for you and want to find you, where can they find JayJones?
All right. My podcast, which is my driver for all of my different platforms, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. You can Google it, but I'm on all your major podcast platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, radio.com, YouTube. So Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. But the easiest way to connect with me is BEB Connect, like Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, BEBconnect.com. That's actually a page on my website that has all of my social media contact information and all of my resource links, like my book, my 2 platforms that I have to circulate dollars in the Black community, my online courses, and all of that. BEBconnect.com.
Thanks so much. You've been so gracious with your wisdom and
appreciate it.
really just trying to educate our audience. Leave us with a final thought, Jay.
All right. Can I leave you with two thoughts, if that's okay?
Absolutely.
The first thing I want to let people know, and you talked about economics, so I want to do a selfless plug. This is my first book. Well, it's not my first book. My latest book, A New Black Wall Street, and the title is Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses. And it's kind of ironic because the 99th anniversary of Black Wall Street getting burned down, I believe, was yesterday. And so what I wanted to say real quick, guys, if you're not selling something online right now, something's wrong with you. I don't care if it's a number 2 pencil and paper clips, okay? And I say that on my podcast all the time. So Black Wall Street was a 36 in Tulsa, because there was one in Raleigh, 36 square foot block. Now, with the advent of cell phones and computers, it's a worldwide economy. And we're always first when it comes to fashion and all types of stuff. We need to be first when it comes to business. So A New Black Wall Street, the book, you can go to anewblackwallstreet.com, pick yourself up the physical copy, what I just showed you, or the digital copy. And it talks about how you can build an online e-commerce platform for yourself, and also how you need to support other Black-owned businesses. So if you tell me I can't find a Black-owned business, you're lying to yourself. It's one thing to lie to me, but you're lying to yourself, because all you got to do, there are apps out there. You shop on Amazon, right? Go find a Black-owned business, shop online, and support that brother and sister. Also, I just want to tell you guys real quick before I close it on out, and I want to give people some hope. So let me tell you real quick about the first product that I started selling online. So if y'all watching this, I'm a bald-headed Black dude, right? I know absolutely nothing about flat irons. So my wife's flat iron broke. She was distraught. Oh man, she had one part of her head done, not the other part. This was years ago. And she said, man, I got to go to the store and get a flat iron after work. And I said, well, how much do they cost? And she said, oh, about $150 to $200. And I'm like, what, for this? And she was like, yeah. I said, oh my God, light bulb goes off, family. So listen to this story. So I said, all right, I go on to Alibaba.com. I start looking around. I found a couple of flat irons that looked like the one my wife had. So I ordered 3 samples from 3 different manufacturers. And I told my wife and my 2 daughters, hey, use these, over the next couple of weeks, 6 weeks. And at the end of that, tell me which one you think is the best and why. So my wife was like, it needs to have high heat ceramic plates, ba-bop, ba-bop, ba-bop. Now, I did it backwards. I actually went and trademarked the name, created a whole brand before I even knew if they were going to sell. And I positioned the product as a high-end product. And I want y'all to listen to this, all right? Put down your phones or whatever. I want you to listen to these numbers, because numbers don't lie. From China, landed, each flat iron in a nice box, magnetic closure box. I made it high-end. Cost $10.78. I sell them for $129. So you see the margin. In the first 6 months that I was selling online with this one product, and I was only selling on Amazon, I grossed $272,033 from June until December. And out of that 272, my profit margin was like 70%. So that's close to 200 stacks in 6 months from a bald-headed dude that never used a flat iron before. But I saw an opportunity where I could position a product that basically said, get the same professional salon grade tool at home, as opposed to spending $200 each time you go out to the salon to get your hair done. And so if you never thought about e-commerce before, it's here and it's not going to stop. So that's why I said, if you're not selling a number 2 pencil and paper clips online, whatever you're selling, sell something online. So I wanted to say that. And the last thing I wanted to tell you guys too, I built my podcast is the center point of my ecosystem. So I talk about in my book, building and supporting Black-owned businesses. So I created 2 platforms to help do that. The first one is besmartbyblack.com. And what that is, it's a platform for Black product producers to sell their products to Black consumers worldwide. And it's free to upload your information, your product information. I was looking for a black videographer for an event in Philly I was doing, and I couldn't find one. So I created another platform for freelancers called hireblackfreelancers.com. So if you're a black freelancer, upload your information. It's free. If you do anything on Fiverr or freelancer.com, you can connect with black consumers and black businesses that are looking to spend their money with black freelancers. I got all types of online course, Brand Builder Academy, my book, A New Black Wallstreet. I have Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Academy, which has all my courses in. And I'm just trying to build an ecosystem, family, to help build an economic power base in the black community, because that's where we need to start. Economics rules everything. And the last bit of advice, I always close this out. And I talked about pinpoint monetize your genius. So the three things, if you don't remember anything JayJones said to you, I want you to remember this. Do what you love, do what you're good at, and do something people will pay you for, and you'll never work a day in your life. That's it.
Jay, you just dropped so much good stuff, brother. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure my audience is going to benefit from it, and I'm looking forward to releasing this. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and your willingness to give back, brother.
Thank you, man.
You are a true power move maker.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, Shawn, for having me on your platform, brother. Like I said, and I'm one of them type dudes. If you reach out to me, like I said, hit BEB Connect. Anytime you reach out, I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can, man. It's so funny, Shawn, when I talk to people like from not on the podcast, they're like, damn, man, you're the same dude. I'm like, yeah, bro, because this is just who I am. I'm not trying to put on a facade or front. So you see my warts as well as you see the good stuff too. And I share all of that on the podcast. And I tell people I'm not a guru, I'm a guru. Everything I do, I talk about. I don't talk about things that I've never done before. So I speak from what we call experience. And so here's the difference, guys. Everybody talks about knowledge is power. My saying is, know-how is power. So knowledge can be acquired by watching this interview. You may acquire some knowledge, all right? If you jumped in the seat of an F-15 fighter jet, and, you sitting in the back seat and you watching the pilot move and motivate, all right, that's knowledge. You're reading a book, that's knowledge. Know-how comes from doing. And so the difference is know-how comes from doing. Knowledge can be acquired everywhere. And if you're an entrepreneur, prospective entrepreneur, all of that thinking in your head and stuff is great. But until you start to create some action and start to do, you're never going to find out if your business or your idea or dream is going to be successful. So stop focusing just on, you got a plan, but action has to come after that. So focus on learning how to know how as opposed to gaining just knowledge.
Jay, you're the man. You are the man.
I appreciate you, family. Most definitely. I want to tell you, I love your platform. I love the experiences that you have. Not many people have that, coming up in the music industry and doing what you're doing, man, and being able to take that information from some of the biggest and greatest entrepreneurs and creators and being able to share that with your platform, man. It's amazing. And my big thing is, bro, it's all about collaboration. Every other ethnicity does it. So, anytime, bro, we linked up anyway. So anytime you need to come back on my platform, brother,
I already know
we're gonna make it happen.
My brother, you be good. You be well, Jay.
I will, brother. All right, my man. Thank you.
Yep. What's up, guys? Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the video. Truly appreciate you. If you like anything you heard here today, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you know anybody that can benefit from this message, feel free to share.